Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you so much for the lovely introduction. Gosh, I'm excited. So here I'm just going to share some slides. So let's just get a vocal confirmation that you can all see my slides.
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. I'm very excited to join you for International Women's Day at the Leicestershire Partnership NHS Trust and LPT Women's Network. What a day to celebrate, and what a day to embrace equity. But I want to start off with all being cheesy, and hopefully someone can get screen grabs of our cameras while we're all grabbing ourselves and embracing ourselves. So 1, 2, 3, go. Hope someone's capturing this, by the way. Thank you. I thought what a fantastic way to get started, and of course some lovely oxytocin and hugging ourselves. But today I'm going to deliver a talk on the journey back to yourself, the path to true success. I'm going to talk about the challenges we may face as women in lots of different industries, sharing my story, and hopefully you'll find some commonality too. I'll talk about what I think the remedy to some of the challenges in our current systems are. The remedy being radical authenticity, a new self-concept, and a better story to become your truest self and to carve a path to your very brightest future. Now, we all exist in systems. This is clear, right? We live in lots of interconnecting, interacting systems, and it's important. It's a very important starting point to acknowledge the various systems that we live and participate in. Now, systems aren't inherently bad, but systems have their own values. And as individuals in the systems, we also have our own values. And we may find that we exist in a system where we and the thing that we represent isn't valued. And therefore, we may find ourselves at the bottom of a system's hierarchy. And as a result of that, we may feel inadequate, not worthy, and not enough. And this can be a very painful experience. But you might also find yourself at the top of a hierarchy and find yourself only seeing your way of view and the value of what you represent. Now, I'm going to talk about our journey back to ourselves, but this often is steeped in something else, a journey to inclusion, which ultimately starts with getting an awareness of the systems we exist in and the biases we've picked up and our own biases, and seeing that as a starting point towards that journey to inclusion. After all, we're all different. As women, we're all different. We have different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, there's different neurodiversities, and all of these intersectionalities create a very different perspective. But regardless of this, we all deserve to be included and have our inherent worth acknowledged. Therefore, the journey to inclusion starts with us all including ourselves, and as a result of that, learning to include others and creating spaces where other people can show up authentically. Looking back at the pandemic, it's clear that some challenges have become even more pertinent now as a result of changes in our systems. The UN and McKinsey looked at this. They found that women's jobs were more vulnerable in a crisis. They found that women do more unpaid domestic labour. And when girls were locked out of schools, they were taking more traditional roles at home, 66% more traditional roles, such as cooking and cleaning, compared to 31% of boys and men in the same age group. Now, we don't know what the long-term impacts of this are, but we know that we exist in systems and they can have impact on our lives. So as well as acknowledging that, it helps us to validate the reality we're living in. When we validate reality and we validate ourselves, we can then start to look for solutions. The first solution that I want to share with you all today is this one: radical authenticity. You see, I'll tell you why it's important. First, when we validate ourselves, we've got to understand systems. Secondly, we've got to understand the value of the difference that we bring. So the fight for gender inequality is a long one, and it's a very tumultuous history of people striving for us to get the benefits and the freedoms that we have today. But in that, it's clear that there's a real value in that diversity, there's a real value in our differences. And in fact, that diversity and inclusion are nature's agenda. So let me share some lessons from a book I really like, 8 Master Lessons of Nature by Gary Ferguson. He writes in his book how diversity has always been nature's way of ensuring resilience. So he'll explain that wildflowers, maybe you have various species and they all have different strengths. So one may have really deep roots, so that in a drought it endures. Yet you may have one that's immune for a particular blight. So when that blight ravages the ecosystem, that species withstands it, and it becomes a surviving species that keeps the ecosystem going till the others recover. You see, diversity seems to be nature's way of ensuring resilience, but more than that, it seems to be nature's way of giving us new solutions. In the various diverse plants we have in nature, we see that they all provide us different solutions, from plants giving us medicine, such as NZT from marine sponges, or aspirin from white willow bark trees. See, diversity is not just important in nature, it's important for us in society too. When researchers have examined groups of work and they've examined influential and important scholar papers, in fact, when they examined 1 million scholar papers, they found that the teams with the highest amount of diversity, and they were looking at cultural and ethnic diversity, they found that those teams produced really high value work, the highest quality work, being measured in the fact that they were most referred to in other publications, they were most utilized. So that means they were really adding value. So that means that difference of thought, that difference of mindset, that difference of background can be so valuable. So therefore, I often reflect on this when it comes to this journey to authenticity, that first, you've got to really see the value that you bring. And when it comes to International Women's Day, we've got to see the value specifically that women bring. I think for women to thrive, we often have to really value this different way that we might approach things. One of the things that I always remark on in my career, or in anyone's career, is how often there is a stress, a focus on them assimilating, becoming like what the majority in that space is. For example, women are often told to go on assertiveness training, or one training after the other, that is to counter something that may be their nature. And I think there's something in that. And I often reflect that we need to value both a masculine approach to the world and equally a feminine approach to the world as a distinct set of qualities and a way of approaching the world. One that's maybe more action, independent and disruptive, and another that's more nurturing, cooperative and sustainable. You see, we need that balance for the world to really thrive. And it's important that they complement each other. And it seems to be that we've forgotten that importance of valuing this difference. I can speculate on some of the reasons for this. I'm a really big fan of creation myths. And one of the things that I found is that from Syria to Asia to Northern Africa, all writers write around the role of feminine energy and masculine energy throughout time. And one of my favorite authors, Joseph Campbell, he writes about this in his book, The Hero's Journey. And he explains how religion started exalting gods and kind of abasing goddesses. And by Grecian times, a new order had arisen that suppressed women. And now I think this is what we see in the Western world. And this is what has sparked this journey for women to fight for greater equality. So we can get to this day where we celebrate International Women's Day. Before this moving and kind of degrading of goddesses in time, goddesses and gods were equally valued for their difference and their various traits. And I think this is something that we need to move into, not just equality, but to see the value of the difference and see it as a difference that's worth nurturing, that's worth creating space for, so that people can really be their very best selves, so that we can restore balance in the archetypes, so we can use both of them as they're both necessary and valuable. And I think this urges organisations to do the work to allow people to thrive in all of their diversity and in all of their individuality, so they can be themselves and authentic instead of modelling an inauthentic style because the world has said they need to be that instead. I think no one can beat you at being you. So why not just do that and be the very best you can be? And I think that's the really important thing for us to all learn about this, is growing more into ourselves rather than growing into another model of something that someone else has created for us. So instead of that story I told earlier about rolling out assertive training, we roll out becoming yourself training. And in fact, focus on the real thing that I think will help us all thrive and go to real new levels of success and reach our very own zenith potential. And this is radical authenticity. Knowing your value, using your value, and thriving as a result of that. There's a second solution, I think. In fact, there's several solutions, but one thing that I think is so pertinent is stories. We're storytelling creatures. I mean, I'm talking to you using creation myths. We love stories. We think in stories. Our minds remember our experiences in stories. So we are all the stories we tell ourselves, but also the stories that society tells us. And that becomes part of who we are. Our stories are made up of all the things we've told ourselves, the perceptions that we have of the reality of experiencing, and everything we've experienced to date. But our stories can be positive or negative. They can be true, they can be partially true, and they can be entirely false or really quite skewed. On my slide, I have a picture of myself and some of the key things I used to describe myself. But this is a task I ask you guys to all do in your own time. Grab a picture of yourself and doodle on that page. How do you describe yourself? Because those stories, that perception is ultimately skewing your very perception of reality. And is it one that is aiding you to be your very best self and creating a better sense of who you are in the world, making you feel a greater sense of self-esteem? Or is it one that's diminishing you? That's something to reflect on. But let me start with my story. I'm a chartered civil engineer working in flood and coastal risk management, a career that I chose at the grand old age of 9, a time where I was living in Nigeria and I witnessed how engineering could transform the world. That became my story, as I was sold on the transformative power of civil engineering and decided it would be my first tool to change the world. That's my story. That's my motivation. But what's your story? What are your inner motivations? You see, to really thrive and to go on that journey back to yourself, self-awareness is such a huge part of this, as you need to know yourself so deeply, so intimately. See, I've defined myself, but you need to define yourself in a way that's going to allow you to be your truest self and carve that path to your very brightest future. That's when you achieve real, true success. And ultimately, doing this helps us to get to solution number 2, which is a new self-concept. Self-concept, well, what is self-concept? Self-concept can really simply be defined as the way you see yourself and the way you see your ability to interact with the world around you. Therefore, because of this, it is hugely powerful. It is hugely life-defining. If you have a positive self-concept and you see yourself in a very good way and you see your ability to do things in a very positive light, you're going to have a very different life from someone who sees themselves in a very negative way and who finds their ability to interact in the world negatively. Therefore, self-concept requires something really critical: intentionality, a reflection, an awareness, and a choice. So one way you can start to craft an intentional self-concept is asking yourself the following question. A big question. Who am I? From this, I want you to do this exercise. I want you to craft 5 powerful I am statements, statements that ring true with every fibre of your being, that when you hear them, you don't feel any conflict, you don't feel any need to caveat it or add any other tagline. I am. And I want you to make a practice of saying it every morning, like an affirmation. I am. This becomes who you are. Maybe this is who you've always wanted to be, or maybe this is who you are when you're at your very best version of yourself. Becoming really aligned with that positive self-concept is going to be very useful in creating the world we want and going on that hero's journey, which we'll talk about later. By developing that new, strong, positive self-concept, you can then create a better story. If you think that I am a leader, I am a world changer, I am a good person, I am kind, I am altruistic, your perception of reality is going to be very skewed to allow you to be those things. You're going to see challenges as opportunities to show the thing that you say you are. And that's going to create new stories, stories that will raise your aspirations and help you to ultimately move away from those limiting beliefs of the past. Today, you can make a decision that everything that came before this moment is just before me, before your talk with Ayo. And everything after is who you're going to be, these new Who am I? I am statements. Statements that allow you to value your difference, value your strengths, and use them in everyday life so that you build radical confidence and self-esteem. Impenetrable self-esteem, grounded in the reality of who you are and in the actions that you take. That is a challenge for you, and I really hope you do this work. Because life to me, in my perception, is we're going on a journey. And I like to think about it as a hero's journey. On my slide, I've used a very simplified version of the hero's journey produced by Chris Vogel. It's based on Joseph Campbell, who's one of my favourite mythologists, and his work on the hero's journey. And I think it kind of models the journey of life itself. And I think if we get familiar with the journey of life, we can really thrive with that self-awareness of the system, that self-awareness of who we are, our I am statements, that self-concept, all of this being the prerequisite, the outfit we put on before we then embark on our hero's journey. But what is the hero's journey? Well, let me talk you through it. At the moment, you're at the starting point. Here, you're in the ordinary world, and this is where the call to adventure comes. This is what I'm giving you, the call to adventure, to make something happen. As a result of this talk, to make a choice to embark on an adventure back to yourself, to being your very best self. And that hero's journey will call, but it's ultimately the hero's choice. Will they refuse the adventure because of fear? They might feel unprepared, inadequate. They may not want to sacrifice what has been asked of them. The hero, after all, has to say bye to the past and yes to the future, exciting as it could be. Then the hero goes on that journey where they meet with their mentor. They encounter someone who's going to give them advice and ready them for the journey ahead. The person is going to impart wisdom that may change you, the hero's mind. Then you're going to cross the threshold. You leave the ordinary world, everything you've known before, everything that's become before Ayo. And you cross that threshold into adventure, into this new world driven by a brand new self-concept. The step may seem almost inevitable because it represents the choice that you're making, a door in which you go through to pass to a brand new story. And on this journey, there will be challenges, there'll be tests, there'll be allies, there'll maybe even be enemies. But then you learn the rules of the world. You learn how to navigate the world with a new self-concept. You endure tests of strength and tests of wills. You meet friends. You come face to face with foes. And here, every opportunity, every challenge is an opportunity. From the snowy day where you go out and you do your habit of working out, regardless of the weather, that is the hero's journey. The daily practice of having your self-concept align with the very actions you're taking. And then on that journey, you interact with the world around you. You carve new relationships as you interact with the world differently. This is where you learn who you are and who others are and who will help you and who will hinder you. This is where you also get to do something really important. Create new boundaries around how you're going to interact with the world. Protect yourself and learn that also really important skill sets. Then maybe there might be setbacks. The hero always has a setback. They try a new approach though. They adopt a new idea. They go and learn something else. This is where the hero gets to prove they're persistent. That when they fail, they're going to get up, brush themselves off and try again. This is what I'm asking of you, to go on this hero journey, to go on that ordeal, to experience the hurdles of life, because they are natural hurdles of life. There's life, there's death, it's cyclical. You come face to face with weaknesses, but you overcome them. And then as a reward, after surviving all that, you accomplish your goal. A great success, whatever that success is for you. You become a changed person, your best version of yourself. And you may not even realise the extent of the change you've undergone. But then you go back to your ordinary life. You go back to the people you knew before. You share your stories. You integrate back with all of this new wisdom. You do what I'm doing. You tell the world how to go on a journey back to themselves. You face that final test. And you prove that you've learned something on that journey. And you've become a different person. And you apply this great journey and this great reward, this new knowledge of yourself, so that everyone else can follow in your footsteps and embark on their journey. But ultimately, this is a cyclical story. There will be so many journeys in our lives of new growth, of new skills, of new challenges, and returning back to the start, changed and ready to go on a new journey. I want to urge you all this International Women's Day to seek to go on that journey to yourself. The first of many cycles to becoming the very greatest version of yourself that exists. This is your journey, and you get to write it as you wish. It's not just myths. We love hero stories. We love superheroes and we love supervillains because we love stories. And ultimately, when you consider the superhero and the supervillain, you learn something really important. They often have similar backstories. They've had similar challenges, but something really important is happening there. I think Carl Jung really nails this in the head. He says, I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become. That is the difference in the hero and the villain. As you go on this journey, as you embark on this cycle of change, as you go on that journey back to yourself so that you can be your very zenith potential realized, it's about who you choose to become and not the things that happen. Self-awareness of who you are and what you experience is what's going to really help you define where you're going. But ultimately, you've got to own yourself and be accountable to yourself and sharpen the world as this new self-concept and who you say you are. And that comes down to the thoughts you choose to entertaining, the meaning you prescribe to the experiences you have. The hero Batman loses his family at a young age. The villain feels impoverished, lives drastic poverty by systemic issues. But both their pains are valid. Neither of their experiences are particularly positive, but it's the meaning they chose that affected the outcome. As a young person, I grew up and I experienced flooding. Drastic flooding, that many people lost their lives. But I chose the path I'm on today. That's my journey. That's my story. Now I work as a civil engineer in flood risk, reducing the risk of flooding to communities, making people's lives better. So you get to go on that journey saying, what are my experiences? What is my reality? What are the systems I'm in? And how are they working? Even if they're not working for me, what thought can I choose? What action can I take to make the world better as a result of my contribution? How do I go on that hero's journey and be aligned with my self-concept? The hero and the villain often suffer quite equally, but that decision they make is all that makes the difference. And I think we can all be the hero in our lives. I want to think that we have that power, that autonomy, that ability to be all the things that we want to be, but it's a choice. And it starts with the stories we tell ourselves and whether they empower us or not. So when you do that exercise and you look at a picture of yourself and you write the stories that you tell about yourself, ask yourself, does this story empower me or not? Does the story allow me to reach my zenith potential or does it hold me back? Now, I will caveat it that we must validate our experiences and acknowledge the challenges of life. And there are challenges in life. But I don't want you to live there and develop a negative bias towards yourself so that when you're not even experiencing challenges anymore, you live in challenge. It's a mindset. I don't want that for you. I want you to address it, to acknowledge it, to validate it, to then move past it, to challenge the stories, to create that positive self-concept, to go on this hero's journey and to make the daily choice in every single habit and practice to be asking yourself, am I a hero or am I a villain? Which meaning am I applying to my experiences? Because that's what's going to create your future. You can leave the negative past, negative beliefs, fears before today. But after today, you can have something new, something better. So my advice, pick a better thought, pick a better belief for yourselves. And once you do that for yourself, you will find that you create space for others around you to do the same, to be better because they see you modeling something different. As that hero goes back and shares in their original world the lessons they've learned, you can do that. You create spaces where other people are included because by you including yourself and showing up authentically in meetings, at work, in your community, in your family, others will do the same. And you will empower others. I am convinced that when women radically are authentic and they show up for themselves, they can change communities, they can change lives. So I really hope that you'll do this. You'll empower yourself, you'll grow and you'll be authentic. And as a result, you'll bring others along with you. Now, I talked about challenges, but there's something else that I think that could help us in this. Using our emotions. We don't talk about emotions too often in our society. We talk about logic, but we need both. Logic alone, I think, will lead to some dystopic future where you can see the logic of something. This decision is better, but it means this consequence, but I don't care about the people and their feelings, and that can be quite negative, that can be quite rash. But in embedding logic and emotions, you can lead to much better outcomes. And that's why I think we all need to understand our emotions. And I share this with this audience on International Women's Day because it's something that is so pertinent and often women are shamed for. Our society says women maybe are more emotional because often we don't consider anger an emotion, something that was more familiar when we see males display it. So that's why it's really important to understand your emotions and use them as interesting indicators. In fact, I like to think about emotions as bioindicator. Now, a bioindicator is defined as a biological response that reveals the presence of a pollutant by the occurrence of a typical symptom or a measurable response. Now, I think our emotions are qualitative indicators that signal how we're responding to our environment. For example, fear may indicate a perceived danger in the environment around you. Therefore, emotions are just indicators, and we should use them. Now, psychology is really interesting on this, and I find this so interesting. And one idea I want to share with you is the idea of emotional contagion. See, we as humans, when we work with a group of people and we hang out with people for a longer time, psychologists have found our emotions tend to converge together and become more similar over time. This has strengths in building rapport and building teams. However, this is important to know if you are trying to have a strong self-concept so that you can control how you feel and how you show up in the world, because you don't want to be infected by emotions that you do not want. As we are highly influenced by the emotions of others, it's a good thing. However, without boundaries, without a sense that this is happening, it's easy to blur the boundaries and not to know where your emotions are and where the emotions of others lie. And this can be confused as empathy, but actually it's not empathy, it's a lack of boundaries. So here's something I want to share as well in this using your emotions, is to be aware of how you feel. It's telling you something about your environment. But be also aware of this amazing phenomenon, in this emotional contagion that seems so human for us, to feel other people's emotions, to make and take their emotions as ours, and instead practice having boundaries. And there's some fantastic books you can read around this space. The Joy of Being Selfish, for example, that will help you understand the importance of boundaries so that you can then practice empathy, a fantastic trait that's so common in the feminine energy, and instead use it specifically so that you can actually have real results where you can hold space for people's emotions and feelings. But instead of letting that emotion overrun you, a bit like a method actor, and we know the consequences of that with the recent zeitgeist in culture about Austin Butler and Elvis, instead of letting that method actor make us sick, instead we can compartmentalize the feelings while also being able to hold space for other people and really practice that kind of empathy and kindness. So it's something that I really think is really important in this journey to ourselves, using our emotions as an internal indicator of what we see in the world around us, but also not allowing other people's emotions to overpower us. And it's something that I personally reflect on. I remember in my early career and when I was running charity events, and one event absolutely flopped. But I was able to think logically, I've organised more events in the space of a short period of time. I'm doing my master's degree. This is a lot to handle. This event might have not been set up for maximum success. Therefore, logically, I could do better, and these are the clear lessons learned. However, there was so much emotional hysteria around it that I felt myself getting overwhelmed by it, and I let emotions that were not mine overwhelm me. It's important in all settings that we are able to say, this is my emotion, this is how I feel, but this is someone else's emotion. And that's just one example from my personal experience. So how do we make this work? How do we make sure that our emotions are our emotions and we're not allowing others affect our clarity? Well, we don't just act on other people's emotions. We check in with ourselves. Is this my emotion? So instead of someone's fear making us not start our own business, instead of someone's fear making us not show up authentically, instead of someone's shame limiting our self-expression, instead of inheriting or being infected with feelings that aren't ours without checks and balances, we're able to say, oh no, this isn't me, this isn't mine. A bit like when you're at home, you lock your front door, right? Your door isn't open for everyone. Well, same, you don't leave your emotional gates unlocked and unchecked. So this is just a real key lesson and something that I think will go a world of good for women, really leveraging their strengths in the workplace, their strengths in society, but without some of the side effects of it. And it's something that actually, coming from a neurodivergent perspective, being autistic myself, I'm so aware of how much of the things that we do is programming and we receive and doesn't originate from us. So it's really important to say, is this from me and is this from someone else? So that's a really key lesson. And this leads us very nicely to the final thing I want to share, going to your compass. Finding your compass, your North Star, the thing that's going to get you from here to here, the thing that's going to guide you on that hero's journey, the thing that's going to help you on those dark nights of the soul. Because the drive for growth, to be your best self, to be the change you want to see in the world, you've got to know why. The why is your compass. It is the meaning. It is the drive. It is the impetus for action. Meaning is so important because the hero's journey and the continuous journey of life has challenges. That's kind of the course of existence. However, the lens in which you see that experience through is everything. Meaning makes you stronger. It helps you overcome laziness. It gives you purpose. It reframes the challenges you face as the opportunity for growth instead of just suffering. So it's important to be clear on who you are and what you value, to live with that intent, to live with that why, to live in that alignment. In the words of Friedrich Nietzsche, he says, if you know the why, you can live anyhow. But let's get practical. How do we do this? How do we live our why? Well, there are lots of exercises that will help you discover this. And this is something that I like to do for lots of people I work with. So I'm going to give you a bit of homework and I'm going to need some engagement right now. So could you grab a piece of paper, your smartphone, whatever you have to hand. I'm going to give you an exercise that I've completed and I've completed with everyone I've ever worked with. Grab a piece of paper now. Come on. This is for you. This is your compass. Are you ready? I'm going to need some vocal participation here.
We are ready.
Yes. Ready, ready, ready. Let's go. So I want you to write these things. First, life vision. Second, quality of life. Third, career. Fourth, financial. Fifth, social. Sixth, parenting. Seventh, health and fitness. Eighth, intellectual life. Ninth, emotional life. 10th, character. 11th, spiritual life. And 12th, relationship. Now, here's the homework. For all these 12 categories, I want you to answer the following questions. What are my current beliefs about that area of my life? Yeah? What are my current beliefs around that area of my life? Now, before Ayo. Now, second question. What did the best version of my life look like in that area? After Ayo, what does that best vision life look like? What does it look like in that area? Now, 3, why would that be better? And why would I want that? Why would it be better? Why would I want that? That's going to be the thing that's going to get you to be like, yes, I want this. This is why I want it. This is why I need it. This is why I'm going to do the action. And finally, 4th, what would I need to do to achieve that? What would I need to do to achieve that? This is where you detail the action required. So if you say in quality of life that you want to sleep 8 hours a day, because currently you're not sleeping enough and you're tired and that's making you emotionally irregulated. You're going to know the why is I want to function better. Therefore, the sleep is necessary. So what would I need to do to achieve that is having an alarm clock for bedtime. A bedtime routine that means an hour before I want to go to bed, I'm taking action toward going to bed. Routines that say I say no to anything that's past my bedtime. That, because you can see how simply knowing that creates a framework. I am not sleeping. Best version, I sleep more. Why? I'm emotionally regulated. I can function better. What do I need to do? Bedtime routine, alarm clock, saying no to anything past my bedtime. Can you see how that creates a framework? By simply answering these questions, you can understand what you want in the various spheres of your life. And of course, our lives are multifaceted and holistic. So actually answering these questions across the board helps you define what success is for you personally. This becomes your blueprint, your framework, your matrix for decision making. It helps you know your whys. It helps you define the goals and the actions you need to take. But ultimately, it will help you to implement accountability. When someone asks you to do something, you'll be able to ask, does this action facilitate my goals? Is this essential to who I want to be? This will help you say yes to what's essential, what is necessary, and say no to everything that's not essential, not necessary, and not aligned to your goals and actions. Therefore, making the most wisest possible investment of your time and energy, allowing you to do the most perfect, best thing, most enjoyable thing. Operate at your highest order of contribution. Be your very best self. Now, I've given you lots of homework, but this won't work unless you do the action. This will just be a fun talk you attended one day. And I don't want that to be a fun talk you attended one day. I want to be a fun talk that changed your life, that was before Ayo and after Ayo. So I urge you, do all these tasks. Celebrate yourself, but celebrate all the women that have worked so hard for us to be at this point in history, to then be able to go even further. We didn't come this far to only come this far, but we get to pave the way for that future. We have to do the work. So do the work. Acknowledge who you already are, that it's an awesome person that's on a journey to be more awesome and get to know themselves and try lots of things and take opportunities to grow and iterate through that hero's journey and to live in alignment and to acknowledge the reality they live in and to say, okay, these are the challenges, to validate that, but then to move past that, to write a better story, to create a better self-concept, to then aim their compass to the future and become their very best self, to celebrate themselves and all the women who've come before and all the women who will come after. Because when we all thrive, when we all live at our highest order of contribution and reach our zenith potential, we make the world better, not just for women, not just for girls, but for everyone. And if that isn't inspiring enough for you to do the work, well, I don't know what is. But I will caveat this. I'm not suggesting hustle culture. I'm allowing you to remember who you are. I'm helping you to go on a journey to be like, this is who I am and this is who I want to be. And to acknowledge how awesome you already are. That we are all masterpieces, but continuously work in progress. So this isn't to be harsh to yourself or to be a tyrant with yourself, to be kind with yourself like you would to a sibling or anyone that you loved. That means prioritizing the important things, the well-being, the eating well, the clean, safe environment, the things that Maslow's hierarchy that says we need first and foremost, and then taking that sustainable approach. And ultimately, doing what you say you will, being accountable to yourself, building that credibility, and feeling that confident to be able to hold other people to account, to live in the world as all of who you are authentically, and happy and proud. So thank you so much for listening to me talk, and hopefully you're going to take some incredible actions to create a world of true success for you and for everyone around you. Now, let's get to the very exciting part. Let me hear your questions and let me answer them.
Oh my goodness. Ayo, thank you so much. That was so inspirational. There is so much love going on in the chat for you. Oh my goodness. Right. Let's, without further ado, let's go straight into questions. Goodness me. Okay. What have we got first? Anne Linsell, do you want to come in? Take yourself off mute.
Thank you. That was just incredible. I have to say, yeah, I was scribbling notes on scrappy bits of paper all over the place. I just loved everything in it. I think a question that just I felt when you were going through it is, and you know, I coach colleagues, and I come across this a lot in colleagues, and I also come across it personally as well, in terms of when fear holds people back. How do you what advice would give for colleagues that, and I'm very conscious that you don't always know it's fear, but you hold yourself back by those limiting beliefs. What advice would you give for colleagues to step through that fear?
First of all, get curious with it, right? I'm an engineer by trade. Everything comes down to a root cause analysis, right? So initially, you may not know it's fear. We're not all in touch with our emotions. We live very fractured with them. They've been shamed for so long that so often we don't even know what emotions are till we're feeling the psychological consequences of ignoring them. So initially, get curious with yourself. What am I feeling? What is this? Where is this coming from? Give yourself time and space to really spend time with yourself, and you'll find that this stuff comes out of you. Actually, oh, I am scared. I'm scared of being seen. Okay, where's that fear come from? Okay, because this has this consequence. Maybe my head's above the parapet, that I could fail big. And then you'll just get more and more information, more and more information. And if you practice that curiosity with it, you are going to get to the actual heart and crux of the issue. And that's where you can then self-coach yourself or get a coach and work through that. Is it a limiting belief? It's a limiting belief that I can't do that kind of thing. People like me don't do that kind of thing. Or it's, oh, oddly, I didn't even think life could be that good. Upper limit belief. Life can be that good. I can do something I love, and it's easy for me, and I'm that good at. So you can actually understand what beliefs are underpinning that emotion. So get curious, ask yourself questions, treat yourself like someone that you just met and you just want to get to know, like you're dating someone. You're curious, right? Get curious. Date yourself. Ask yourself those questions. Be curious till you get to the root cause of it. And then now you know what the underpinning belief or limit is, you can then address it. Okay, so it is this. And is this true? Okay, because sometimes the question is you'll find out the belief is I need to be even more exemplary to go for that job promotion. I need to have 4 master's degrees and speak 17 languages. That's some of the bars we create for ourselves, ridiculous bars. And then you say, is this true? Who else is doing that role? Do I have the same skills and qualifications? What value do I add? What's my skills gap analysis looking at? Then we do homework like that, skills gap analysis for that role, job profiling. Okay, there is a gap that maybe I think you've at 80%, go for it. But there is a gap. Okay, I'm going to go and have a look at how I fill that gap. This is the action I'm going to take. And then I'm going to address the issue. So that is the curiosity, the understanding, the belief system, challenging if it's true or not, the bits that can be worked on. Make it factual, pull out the facts, use tools like skills gap analysis. If it's a job role, if it's something in life, ask other people who maybe are in those roles, or I'm using an example of going for a promotion, but like pull out that data so that you can then really work with the reality, and then you can go from there. And I think then you take the action, because at the end of the day, to become who we want to be next, we have to take the scary action. We have to do the thing that scares us. But then we have, if we can, create the opportunity in the environment that we can have a successful experience. So when we do these things that scare us, there's another really important bit to add here. It's creating the environment for success. You go into a team where they have a good culture. You go into an organization that cares about EDI, so that you know that you are setting yourself up to succeed. You don't throw yourself into the lion's den and working in a toxic place and hoping for the best. That isn't setting yourself up for success. So there's 2 bits. You do all the curiosity, you understand the belief system, you challenge it, you get the facts, you take the actions on that. And then the second bit is, are you creating the environment that you have a successful experience? So that every time you do a scary thing, you gain a successful experience, you gain competence, which then leads to confidence, and then that goes back into your self-esteem and your self-concept, and then now you're like, I'm a big boss. Give me the next challenge. What's scary next time? And of course, there'll be some bigger, scarier thing. But then you do it again, and you do it again, and who knows? You might be Prime Minister of the country.
That's brilliant, and I love the fact it's all about the actions, and the the action begets everything else, and it's just stepping into that. But thank you.
That's a great question.
Thank you. I love that. Competence equals confidence. I love that. I've made so many notes. Thank you so much. We have another hand up. Thank you. I'm just trying to go to it to see who it is. I can't see. Do you want to take yourself off mute, please, and come in and ask your question? I can't see who you are.
Yeah, it's me. I just want to say you're a person, inspiration for us all, honestly. And just a curiosity, do you have affirmations in your room? Do you say them out loud every day? Because it's so positive. Amazing.
I do say affirmations every day. Turns out I've been doing affirmations since I was a kid, but I didn't know that's what they were. I used to say, my mum says, I used to say it every time when I was little, Ayo rules. And I used to always talk about it like all the time. Like since I was a baby, like the first time I could talk, I just really just always saying these things, but I didn't know that's what they were. And now as a grown up, I have a practice of it. Initially it was all over my mirror, so I couldn't look at myself without seeing my affirmations, which meant every time I looked at myself, all I remembered is, well, I'm awesome. I can do anything challenging. Look at the track record. It speaks for itself. It's like self-trust. It isn't just bigging yourself up, it's self-trust. There's no challenge I can't work through. And that kind of thing. And then that became a thing that is just who I am now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So where have you been, honestly?
Start doing your affirmations.
Thank you so much for attending this meeting. It's just been so, even me now, if I'm in this meeting, I feel like a different person and seeing things in a different perspective. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the feedback. Because I want this to not just to be a talk. I want to see people's lives transformed as a result. See, it's my version of engineering in the software.
Thanks, Karamjit. That's wonderful. Thank you. I can't see any questions apart from just absolute adoration and praise for you in the chat, Ayo. So thank you so much. If anybody has another question, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll go to the panel for panel questions. Okay. Angela, Kathy, I can see you're on the call. If you don't mind me putting you on the spot, we've heard Ayo talk here around so many different aspects of what Northampton and Leicester are achieving through their culture and their leadership and compassionate, inclusive leadership. Really interested to hear your reflections on what you've heard this morning or this afternoon.
Thanks, Amy. I mean, I think wow came to mind, and I know somebody else said it, but that's how I felt. Totally inspired, because you've clarified many things that I think just make it easier for us to connect with. And, I really resonate with creating the conditions and, celebrating yourself and knowing yourself, because we're all different and we're striving for a culture that recognises that everybody belongs and everybody's got diversity in what we bring. So that's really resonated with me in terms of our cultural journey. But from a personal point of view, I loved those homework elements. I've written them all down. Okay, so I have written everyone down, and I will be going away to relate and understand them for me, because we're all busy people. You'll know that, Ayo, as well as we do, and we don't often take that time. So I think I'll be taking that away to do. But totally inspiring, and I know from the chat everybody else has felt the same. I knew it would be, but it was more than I even hoped for. Thank you.
Thank you.
So hello, I'm Kathy. I'm the chair of LPT. I found it really energizing as well. I love the authenticity and self-awareness. That's something that Angela and I often talk about when we're looking for great leaders in our organizations. And we feel that everyone in LPT is a leader, and on this call we've got some awesome super women as part of our team. You know, they bring incredible strength and power, and you know, you have that too, and that's really come through the screen to us. I wanted to ask you how you make sure you continue to refuel your energy and how you look after your health and well-being, because that's important for all of us to look after ourselves, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's about habits. I have habits on habits on habits, and I praise myself every time I do my habits, because that's when I say I am who I say I am. So I wake up in the snow, I went for my 5K because that's my habit. I went to bed early last night because I was like, I think I'm running low on the tank of sleep, and I had an early night. That's a habit. I eat well, I make sure I eat, I drink enough water, I do the basics right. And I often think we forget the basics like sleep, drinking water, going out and moving a bit. And then there's some other really strong key things that will add so much fuel to your tank. Doing things that you love. And we don't often do enough of that. But I do the things I love, and I try and add the things I love even to things that don't need me to do those things. I make it part of the agenda. If it's, you know, skewing the way I deliver my day job, to add my strengths into it, so I live in my authenticity, like this is who I am, I'm displaying that, and that self-expression allows me to just enjoy myself. I'm doing something that I'm good at. It feels like what I love to do, so that also really adds to my tank, and I think it's something I really urge everyone to do, because so much of what we do as our day jobs don't actually align to what we love to do. So if there's a way of actually integrating that into your job, you will thrive, but also your business will enjoy it. Everyone will enjoy it. So find ways to weave who you are, what you love in everything you do. And of course, please get the basics right. Eat, sleep, drink water.
Thank you. That's great advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There are no more questions. So I just want to say again a massive, massive thank you, Ayo. Thank you so much. And everybody on this call, not just women, allies of women who are joining us today, thank you so much for participating and joining us. I hope you feel really inspired. Have a good rest of International Women's Day and embrace equity. And remember how awesome you are. Thank you, everyone.
So much.
Thank you. Thank
you
you so
so
much. And
thank you so much.
everybody.
It's such a delight.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.